Greater Centerville Historians organized in the year 2000. The purpose of the organization is to preserve the history of the Township of Centerville, Cleveland and surrounding area. Gerald O'Neill, Charlie Bauer, Richard Wiegand, and myself, Kathleen Sixel, were the founding members. In 1831, the territory south of Green Bay was sold to the U.S. government by the Native Americans who had title to the land. The consideration was the promise of a reservation in another state. The Township of Centerville was established in 1850. The township had a village called Centerville. The reason for the hamlet's original name of Centerville was, in the days of the Indians, there was a trail along Lake Michigan between Manitowoc and Sheboygan. This heavenly spot was exactly at the halfway mark, so the early white man gave it the name Centerville. In 1849, the village of Centerville was surveyed and laid out in lots and blocks. The village of Centerville was renamed Hika when the Postmaster General informed the village leaders that another Centerville was located in the state. When it became time for Centerville to be renamed, a judge in Manitowoc by the name of Albert Schmidt would take kids hiking. The judge said, "You can't call a town hiking, so why not make it Hika?" Thus, the village of Centerville became Hika. In the early years, Centerville had the vision of becoming a lake port. To encourage ships to dock there, 2 piers were built into Lake Michigan. Many German immigrants arrived by schooners, and the village began to grow. The village had a brick factory, stores, schools, a Lutheran and a Catholic church, mills, saloons, blacksmith shop, and a fire department, and a brewery. When the brewery was built, the settlement began to flourish. But when fire destroyed the brewery, the largest industry, there was no longer a need for the harbor facilities. So ended this chapter of the development of Hika. 2 miles west of Hika, another settlement known as St. Wendel began to grow. It had a Catholic church, a general store with a connected dance hall, and a post office was also located in the complex, a funeral parlor, and at one time a motel. With the clearing of the forest, tilling of the land began. This prompted the exporting of lumber and grains. The farmers of Centerville looked forward to the building of a railway since they had a serious problem transporting their products. In 1873, the Milwaukee, Lakeshore, and Western Railroad was built between the settlements of Hika and St. Wendel and was named Centerville Station. In 1880, Centerville Station was renamed Cleveland after President Grover Cleveland. Cleveland, at that point in time, owes its growth to the fact that the Township of Centerville was a rich farming community, and farmers from miles around would bring products to be shipped by rail or ship. The village of Cleveland had several grocery stores, a furniture store, a funeral parlor, several saloons, Lutheran church, hardware stores, several gas stations, newspaper, photographer studio, several car dealerships, cheese factory, several feed mills, livestock yard, and lumber yards. The biggest business was the Cleveland Co-op, which offered many types of services. With the failing of grain crops, the farmers began dairy farming. With the abundance of milk, another industry began, cheese and butter making. Local cheese factories dotted the countryside. One-room schools were usually built near the cheese factories, so children would have a ride to school when farmers brought their milk. In 1958, Hika, St. Wendel, and Cleveland incorporated into the village of Cleveland. In 1968, the Cleveland Elementary School was built. The Township of Centerville has seen many farming changes, but dairy farming is still the primary vocation. Today, Cleveland is known as the seat of Lakeshore Technical College, which offers an educational alternative to 4-year colleges. An ancient proverb states, When an old person dies, a library burns to the ground. These words were the inspiration for organizing the Greater Centerville Historians. We hope to preserve as many memories as possible.
We're here at Lechler Lane and Highway C. This is where Kathy Sixel's homestead was. We're here on a special farm, a Lechler farm on Lechler Lane, and Charlie can indicate what we're all about today. And today's date being July 7th, and 2004. And Charlie, what are we going to be up to today?
This is a Wednesday afternoon, I believe.
Yes, it is.
And I'm here with part of the Lutzy House Barn delegation, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
And we're here to take out some old wooden stanchions out of the down that red barn there, and
Okay.
I wasn't down there yet. And they want to be used in the Lutzy House Barn. And the impressive arch formed by these two big giant trees here.
Okay.
And as the camera looks at the trees, the one on my side of the road, which would be on the right-hand side,
Yes.
the tall tree there is an oak tree.
Okay.
And the one right in front of it, further to the west side here, that's a basswood tree.
Okay.
And the one on the east side of the driveway there, the first one is a big giant basswood tree also.
Okay.
Tree's been there a long time.
Long time. I'm going to take a look at that trunk because it's pretty massive.
It's huge.
That's a massive trunk. And you're saying that's a basswood?
That's a basswood tree, yes.
All right. Yes, that is massive, all right. And again, this is where Kathy Sixel came from, as her maiden name indicates.
So this was her homestead, I believe, huh?
Yeah,
This is
okay.
where she grew up as a child?
Yeah. And what is Kathy as far as with our group?
She's one of the main leaders with the Centerville Historian group, and she's also I don't know if she's on the board of directors for the Lutzy House Barn, but she's involved with both of them.
Okay.
And we have a few other people coming today to help us remove these old wooden stanchions.
Okay. And these are stanchions to be used by cattle, like perhaps cows and so forth.
That's
While they
what
were-
I'm guessing probably they were stanchions so they could put them in there for keeping them safe at night. They weren't in a pasture, and probably for milking them.
Okay.
They were probably milked by hand.
All right. Okay. I'm just going to move over a little bit here. The house is located on the right-hand side of, I think that's what I see down there.
Oh.
I believe that's the house. I'm just guessing too a little bit. It's a very picturesque country setting with the lane going between these large trees. And
Lane's a very narrow lane. You can see it was just built for a team of horses.
that's it. And it's a dead end too, right?
Yes, it's a dead-end lane, yes.
Okay. Charlie's here to do some work though. He said he brought some tools along. And we see some outbuildings. It looks like part of added to the barn, and there's a short, small silo that maybe the roof has caved in or rotted away, but it has a nice picturesque look to it. Very nice. Here that we just met, and he'd like to identify himself and provide some information. He knows quite a bit about the buildings we're going to be looking at. Go right ahead, please.
My name's Emmit Trucho. I'm a brother-in-law to Kathleen Sixel. this was used to be my father-in-law's place. My wife passed away 2001.
Okay.
My stepfather, father-in-law lives here yet now. At the
Okay.
present time.
And what is his name now?
Herman Ben Versi.
Herman Ben Versi. Okay.
Father-in-law's name was Mike Lechler. Mother-in-law was Florence Lechler.
Okay.
And Herman and they got remarried again, I believe 20-some years ago.
All right. Okay. Now, as far as the age of this farm and buildings, do you happen to have any idea on that?
No, that I don't. I don't know the exact age when they...
Okay.
They must have possibly moved here in... My wife said she was like 6 years old and she would be 68 now, so that'd probably be 62 years
62 years ago?
Here.
Okay. All right. Okay, maybe as far as the building that's directly behind you, could you give us some information on that?
Yeah, that used to be the chicken coop here. They had their chickens in here all the time.
Okay.
And, it's slowly falling apart
It's getting old and falling apart. That's the way it goes.
now. Right, and the attached portion there, that used to be the automobile garage there.
Okay. All right. And I know we have another building on the other end of this, so we'll take a walk over there, okay?
Okay,
Thank you.
sure.
Okay, we're at the Lechler Homestead Farm, and we're talking about some buildings, and we have a gentleman here who can provide all the information we'd like to hear about, and he can introduce himself again, and he's got something on a building that's in the background. Go right ahead, please.
My name's Emmit Trucho, and I was a son-in-law of the former owners.
Okay.
This was my wife's homestead here.
All right.
My wife and Kathleen Sixel's homesteads.
All right.
And the building we have behind us used to be the sheep barn years ago. They used to raise quite a few sheep.
Oh, really?
And then they pastured them up in the hills. They had rail fence all around the property.
Really?
And then they'd pasture the sheep in the hills. That's what this was, the sheep barn.
Okay, now that was sheep below, and was there probably some feed or something
I believe
above?
They had hay up above.
Hay up above, okay. Okay, very good. And that building is getting a little older too, I see.
Right. The roof is collapsing on it.
Now, do you know, did the Lechler parents, did they build all this up when they moved here?
No, I believe that was my father-in-law's parents lived here before that already.
Okay, all right.
I don't know if they built this up or who built it up. That I don't have any idea.
All right, okay. But it's kind of a very picturesque little place here. It's a dead end, it's quiet, and I know we took a look at it coming in through that lane in the back there, and those big trees that arch the road are very impressive, and it's a very unique looking place, I must say.
Yeah, and it's all very hilly country back
Very hilly, yeah. As far as crops, do you know what was usually raised here? Was it
Well,
usually
the-
oats and...
Oats and hay and corn was the primary crops.
Okay, very good.
And now it's sort of in this land program.
Oh, I see, okay.
There's some land up further that's rented out up in other ends.
All right. Okay, we're coming around on you a little bit here, and on this other side of the road, which would be the west side, is that correct?
Well, it's the south side of the drive.
South side of the drive, okay. And we have some buildings here, and maybe you can describe what we are seeing here.
Well, there's the house that was remodeled in, let's see, it was remodeled in 1980, roughly.
Okay.
The garage was never attached. There used to be a summer kitchen standing right east of
Oh, really?
the house there.
Okay, basically where the garage stands now, is that right?
Right about where the first garage door starts. That's
Okay.
where the summer kitchen was.
All right, okay.
And way years ago, originally those two lean-tos there, those were open porches on the house there,
Oh, really? Oh,
originally.
okay.
That's about all I really know about the house.
Okay. You mentioned something about a pump house. Maybe we can take a walk over there if we can't see it from here, but you
Well,
mentioned it.
The pump house was standing right by that big cedar tree to your east here.
Okay, let's take a walk over there too.
Okay.
Okay, we're with a gentleman here who knows a lot about this property, and he's got some information. That's a building that was there. It's not anymore. Go right ahead, please.
There was a building right east of this big cedar tree. That's what they called the pump house there. We used to have Years ago, the old-time water pump was on top of this well that you see down here,
Okay.
and there was a gasoline engine in the pump house that drove
Okay.
a line shaft and that run the pump on there.
Okay.
Later on, it was converted over to an electric motor.
Okay. All right.
Then pump house got bad, so a new pump got put in the well down here.
Okay. Very good. And the cedar tree is still from the original.
Right.
Okay. It was there at the time when that pump house was still there. Holy cow.
Tree is as old as I know, and it must be quite a bit older than
Yeah. Yeah. It's good shape though for a cedar. I'll tell you.
Nice looking tree.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay, very good. I think now if you got a moment, we'll talk about the barns and so forth. If you got a minute.
Sure.
Thank you.
I can take time out, sure.
Good. To a gentleman here who's related to the people that had this farm. And we can start with the building that's next to the barn here on this side that is sort of a lean-to. I don't know if that's the right terminology. Over on this side here, can you give us some information on that, please?
You're talking on the left of the barn?
Yes,
Or
yes.
the right of the barn?
To the, it would be my right.
Oh, okay, that used to be the milk house, but that roof was
Oh,
replaced. The old roof collapsed, but it had the same shape to it as it has now.
okay, okay.
But that was the milk house.
That was the milk house.
Right.
Okay. Did they, I presume they had some sort of a tank in there from the water that would run in there, keep the milk cool and,
Yeah, there was a cement tank in there where they left the water run through.
all right.
And then what they did have here, I can recall that the old water pump was here on there, and then there was overhead pipe systems years ago. They didn't
Oh.
have running water in the house. They
Sure.
put overhead pipe, and then they run over, and there's a big old water tank right on the front side of the barn there, underground,
Oh, really?
and that would feed
Oh.
drinking cups and
I see.
cooling tank,
Sure, gravity feed then.
gravity feed.
I see.
Then they
Okay.
had a pipe overhead, and there was a big tank upstairs in the house.
Okay.
And then the water would flow gravity down to the sink and to the toilet.
Oh, very good, very good.
And, well, then there's the barn here now, which is
Yes.
sort of collapsing. The roof actually wasn't too bad until the hailstorm came through here
Oh, yeah.
a couple of years ago.
Yes.
That raised thick with it.
That kind of raised a little heck with that. Yeah.
So,
But there was a barn up above where for hay and straw, and then below was the stable. Is that correct?
that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they had horses and cows, calves in the bottom. And
Okay.
then if you go over toward right there,
Yes. Okay.
was the granary up above.
All right.
And, oats was stored up above. There were all bins up there.
Okay.
And then they would have chutes coming down. They could drop the oats right down to
Really?
the lower level and bag it up, or otherwise bring it way down to the bottom level for the cows.
That wasn't too bad.
No.
That was a good idea.
And the lower part was the machine shed years ago,
Okay.
where all the doors.
Where the doors are there, that was machine
Right.
shed in the granary.
Right.
Oh, the granary was above yet, huh?
Above the stores, yes.
Oh, I get you. I get you. Oh, yes. I see the doors now. Yes. Okay. Good.
There was right below that window was a door where the elevator would go up to put the oats upstairs.
Sure. Okay.
Way years ago, I believe that's before I ever knew them here. They had to have guys, people carrying the bags upstairs.
Really?
Oh.
So the trash machine.
Right. instead of having elevator.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
But the barn is set up as a typical bank barn. You
Right.
know, with the bank on this side, and then it's
Right.
exposed
Oh,
on
yeah.
the east and the
East
north
is
side.
all open.
East
Yeah.
and north side would be all open.
You
could drive everything.
We'll have a big barn hill, but this barn was built right in.
Right into
Right
the
on
hill.
hillside. That's kind of nice. Didn't have to move all that dirt.
Right.
Okay, then we continue a little bit more to my left, and there's a silo there, and there's an unusual story about that thing, if you'd like to give us that information.
Well, we were just looking at it, and the silo is roughly 26 feet above the ground,
Okay.
and it must go down under the ground at least another 15 to 20 feet.
Oh my gosh.
So we actually had to pitch the silage uphill
Oh
to get it out.
my.
And there used to be a roof on there.
Was that just a cone-shaped roof?
No, it was actually a fancy roof, nice round roof with a
Oh.
on the front.
Like a gambrel roof. There.
Right.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay.
They must have built that with a scaffolding or something when they built their roof.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
And probably another reason why the silo's so far in the ground
Yes.
is they probably didn't have the mechanical means to raise the feed that high to get it in the silo.
Okay.
Well, that could be too, probably years ago, because the old feed cutters used elevators.
Elevators,
instead of
right.
Oh, they did.
Right,
Okay.
right. Yep.
All right.
That would be another good
Yeah.
guess on that.
Yes.
I can recall feed cutters having elevators on them.
Yep. Yep.
Sure.
Smalley manufacturer made some. Yep.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you, it's a very unique building and everything, and there was some definite engineering ideas that made it efficient.
Right, in those days. And father-in-law said once they took all the gravel from the silo out of the hills here.
Oh, for real?
They used, all their own
Well,
gravel.
there has to be gravel, I'm sure, in this area because it's.
Oh yeah, they were running a gravel pit right north of the building.
Oh, really?
A number of years ago. So.
Okay. Okay. Do you know how many acres was here at maybe at that time or?
Well, this was a 160-acre farm, but there's only probably like 80 under cultivation.
Okay. All right.
There's like I believe there's 68 acres of woods on this property.
Oh, really? Holy cow! Yeah, that's a lot of woods.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Well, we'd like to take one little look at that silo because that really intrigues me.
Sure, we can do that with it down in the barn.
Very good.
We ain't gonna throw any feed out though.
No.
Talking to a gentleman who's giving us some specifics on this wonderful building here. It's showing a little wear and tear, but the stories behind it are pretty doggone good. And maybe we got two things to talk about. One, the stable for manuring. Maybe you can start with that one.
Okay, where you see that door toward the north there, which is over toward your right,
Yes.
that was the manure track came out there. It was a solid steel track,
Well, solid steel track.
and there were cables going up to right under the roof on the barn that supported it.
Yes.
And that
Yes.
track could be swung
Oh,
180 degrees.
sure, sure. There you could get more coverage, bigger piles.
Right, and
Wow.
it came out to, it must have came out 25 feet out of the barn there.
Oh, okay.
But then one Sunday afternoon brother-in-law and Kathleen, we were all up here,
Yeah.
and the grandchildren got the funny idea. They sat in a manure bucket and pushed each other in and out of the barn, and then all of a sudden the track collapsed. and
You're
fell down.
kidding. Oh, did anybody get hurt, or was it
No,
just a
nobody got
surprise?
hurt. They were lucky that time they didn't get hurt.
Their very own monorail.
Oh, very good.
They must have had a good time.
Anyway, also on the building, we see some doors up on the gable area up there that Charlie had pointed out, and I guess we're kind of guessing what it was used for. Maybe you can tell us what that might have been.
The only thing we can figure out, I can't recall ever using them for hay, but that we thought probably was for ventilation when they were
Okay.
filling the barn. with-
Sure. It was always pretty hot up in those areas.
Oh yeah, that was always a hot job.
Years ago, they used to have hot summers. Now they don't.
Here it's the 7th of July and we got April weather.
That's right. You're right. Okay, very good. Now, did the milk trucks, everything come down to this area to pick up the cans of milk, or did they haul them to a different area when they got done here?
Oh, they did come down here. I should have explained that to you. On the west side of that, to our left there were windows out there, which I closed up. And there used to be one of these roller tracks going out to up on top of the hill, and then the milkman would have to set the cans out of the cooling tank onto that roller, and they'd roll out to the end, and then he'd load them up on the other end there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That worked pretty neat.
Well, you know, these people were thinking around here, I gotta say.
The rollers are still laying down in the barn here.
Really?
Yeah.
For heaven's sake.
So,
Now I'm gonna enter the stable.
need more light in here. We should open the other door.
Stable here.
It used to be the horse barn.
This is the horse barn over here, okay?
Small.
And they got the old logs for the floor supports too, huh?
Big old beams. These beams are They must be 40 feet long. It starts here and goes to the end, and the other one goes from here to the other end.
Okay, I'm going to come over there for a minute, just 1 minute.
Richard Wiegand along too.
Oh, yeah.
Collecting some tools up there.
What's the game plan?
Well, that's what I was just trying to figure out, because I was planning until about 9 o'clock today. I was planning to do this next week. So now I'm trying to figure out the plan on the modified schedule. What we want to do, one way or another, I think these are very close to the type of stanchions that were probably
Hi, Richard.
in the Lutzy House barn. How are you doing, Jerry?
Not too bad.
They're a little more recent, we know that, but I think they have the look and feel of what was in the Lutzy House barn. So what I was thinking, until we're back now, what I was thinking is taking out probably this row with as many of the components as we can, including even boards like this, so that I do it. I don't know.
Drinking cups we gotta remove.
Yeah.
There's no water on anymore in here, is there?
No.
No, that's...
But the other part maybe is with the video work and with the documentation too, is I really like the feeding stalls over here for the horses and the young stock.
Okay.
It'd be nice to get some footage of that.
Sure, sure.
Because I think that's real representative of how things were done at that vintage. I don't think it was like that in the Lutzy House barn.
Okay.
But nonetheless, I think it's an excellent example. So
No problem.
we'll try to get some footage of that too.
Very good.
And I don't know if we're going to be able to be that lucky. We may have to take it down to piece by piece. I don't know.
You got a generator?
Yeah, we got a generator and a cut saw. And I guess kind of my approach would be to cut nails and cut bolts as we need to, and then refit those later, because we're never going to get
I
those.
don't see any splice all the way along here.
Yeah, it's under the
Right-
2x4.
Right here at
Oh,
this
there.
joint, yeah. Now I got maybe 10.
There's another one here.
Yeah, I got maybe 10 photos, still shots the last time I was here, and we'll have the video now, but we'll probably want to take some close-up shots and whatever we need for documentation to rebuild it when we get back over there. Because a lot of these pieces are not going to be interchangeable, they're only going to go in one place, and they got to go back. That's the other thing that we're probably kind of missing, that I don't have anything along for labeling these pieces other than a carpenter's pencil. We probably want to do some drawings. Richard's got-
The cattle barn all the way around here.
Holy right.
And most likely they also had the heifers more on this end.
More on this end, so you wouldn't have to walk as far with the milk.
Right. And
But that's
this pen behind you, that used to be the bullpen.
Oh, okay, okay. This is the bullpen, huh?
The bullpen.
For heaven's sake. And there's some kind of machine also here that's...
There's an old homemade corn husker.
Huh? Really? Well, we got to talk about that too.
Yeah. I don't know too much about it, but it looks like it's a homemade one.
Okay.
It's mostly all lumber.
Well, let's...
Never seen any like it.
I never did either, so maybe...
Anything like it.
No, we'll have to take a look at that one.
Yeah.
What are we looking at?
A homemade husker. Corn husker. I had it all wrong.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Pointing out a piece of equipment that's very rare. Go right ahead, please.
So this, I believe, was a homemade corn husker the way it looks. I believe,
Okay.
As much as we can figure out.
Yeah.
And what it did, they put the corn in there years ago, and then these two rollers, one side had holes in, and the other side had pegs in. So when these rollers come around, those pegs would pull the husk off the ears of corn.
Okay, keep turning, Charlie. See if-
I got all that dirt I gotta
See, now they come around
Oh, that meshes right in there.
and they mesh in there.
Was there a gear train on the other side, Charlie?
Yes, there's a gear here,
A pulley.
a pulley, and then there's a gear on each one of the rollers that
Okay.
For a drive.
put a
And
track
they
on.
just put some shafts in there and put some bearings on each end? And had a trough below, is that correct? And some
Yeah.
screen?
And the husk would fall down below then.
Ah, for heaven's sake.
And then they have a screen below it, so if some kernels did fall out, they could shovel them up.
Yeah, that's right, because kernels do come off.
Sure.
Ah, very good. I gotta take a look at the other side there, Charlie.
Okay.
Okay, this is the gear. Okay, one shaft was driven directly, and then the gear went over to the other shaft to drive that shaft.
That's correct.
Okay. Talked about this silo before, and the gentleman was giving us dimensions which I couldn't hardly fathom at all, but he's got the proof right here in front of us. Go right ahead, please.
Here's a part of the silo we talked about before when we were outside, that we figured was 15 to 20 feet in the ground, so it must be at least 8 feet below this throwout portion here.
The poor person who had to do this.
Yeah, as I look at the silo, Jerry, the
Yes.
part that's all green looks like that's field stone, and then it was masoned out inside.
Yeah.
And as you go up to that, where the
yeah.
line is there, then the rest must be poured concrete.
All right.
See, it does look like homemade gravel. It's all more
Yeah.
coarse.
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, they either dug it out raw or they crushed it in some form, but my God, this is the original home.
Cement must have been better in those years than nowadays. Look at all the
Look at-
silo got.
Yeah.
Right.
And it must have been a very inexpensive silo to build, because all you had to buy was the cement. Because
right.
the gravel you had.
Yeah, right. And size-wise, again, and indicate the depth that we're looking at here right now with the floor. Starting with from the ledge here, which is the stable floor, and going down into the pit. What, are we talking 8 feet, 10 feet, you
We're
think?
talking roughly 8 feet, I believe, that according to what it looks like.
Man, there had to be some swearing going on.
And then the ground level outside must be from the bottom of the silo to
Sure.
the top must be 15, at least 15 feet or
Sure,
more.
sure.
That it is, that's in the ground.
Oh, God. This had to be a nightmare, I'll tell you.
So pity the poor person that had to throw
Oh,
the silage out.
This
to the
was
bottom.
terrible. Yeah, I got it. The rest of the farm, I am complimented. It was very efficient. This one, it didn't quite work out that way. Unbelievable. Very good, though.
So,
Back to the silo, and this is the feed alley. Thank you, Charlie. And this is where all the cattle were fed from the inside area here. We're going to walk down this feed alley after a while.
the chute you see there comes from down from the granary where you could drop the
Oh, that chute there for oats, huh? Or whatever.
right ground feed.
The ground feed, okay. Oh, yes, there it is.
Down from the granary up boat.
Sure. Now there again, that was thinking. That was some efficiency. And these drinking cups, they were fed by gravity-fed water. Is that correct?
Correct. There's a cement tank buried on the front of the barn, on the west side of the barn.
Okay.
And it was higher level than these tanks were.
Okay.
And there was a pipe coming into the barn, and we can look at that after a while. There's a main feeder for these drinking cups that had a float in it that kept the water level at constant level in all the cups.
Wonderful. Gee.
We had swallows here too, they're not even looking at us.
Who was acquainted with the barn that we're in. We're in the stable area, and we're looking at the area that was sort of a feeding area to the cattle, but we're looking at the footings to support that large timber. Could you tell us about that, please?
The footing looks like it's, they use a big rock in the bottom, and then they put another rock on, and they set their posts on these rocks. They didn't pour cement in those years the way it looked.
There was no cement in the rest of the
And this feeding area is all ground floor.
all ground floor.
You had a chute above here where they dropped the hay in this area.
Okay, where is that chute?
That chute is over by towards your right. over
Okay.
by the stairway there.
Oh, all right.
That's where the hay chute was.
Okay.
And there is another hole right up here where they evidently threw down straw or hay. I don't know which.
Okay,
they
that could
threw
be.
down.
Yeah,
Right.
wherever they were located up there.
Here's a trapdoor. Yeah.
Trap door up there. Okay. All right. Very good.
And drinking cups over toward our left, our right here. There's the main part of the drinking system that's got the float in it.
It does have the float there yet?
Kept the level of the water in the drinking cups.
Okay. Very good. Okay.
And it has a float in it. They got a great big hand valve right before the float.
All right.
Could shut the water off with here.
Okay.
And this water was piped in from the outside tank there.
Okay. And this unit right here kept the level of the drinking cups right at the right level.
Right. They were all set that they probably had water 2 inches from the top.
Okay. wonderful. Isn't that something? That's a great idea.
Here was an old bin, they had kept their ground feed in this bin.
Okay. It's pretty much as if somebody just walked away from it. Unbelievable.
You can see though, the barn floor is getting very bad.
Yes, it's starting to heave around now.
If we, put these pieces out,
Richard Wiegand, and we're at what location? And maybe you can go on from there, Richard.
Richard Wiegand, we're in the Lechler Barn. I think this was a homestead farm. I don't know what Emmit said, but I think
Okay,
it was.
I think it was, yes.
And we're north, mostly north of Kiel, a little bit northeast of Kiel,
Okay.
Wisconsin, on Highway C and 57 now. I don't know.
67, I think.
67, okay.
And it's Lechler Lane that takes us in here.
Lane is in, and anyway, we want to take out some of the sections of these wooden stanchions here for the Lutzy house barn.
Okay.
And we were looking at the drinking cups,
Yes, sir.
and you know, they don't have any spoons in them for the cows to push on. And what Emmett was telling you before was there's a gravity system that filled all these cups.
Ah,
There's a central float.
yes.
So what that would have to mean is that all of these are about the same height.
Height, yes, yes.
You know, because if some were
Water
too
will
low
all-
and some were too high, we'd have water running out. So
That's correct, yes.
a central float means that, you know, it was able to maintain a certain level of water
Huh,
all the way around,
yeah,
constantly. So what I observed was that when you have the pipe, this is the feeder pipe down below the
yes,
drinking cups, okay?
correct, yes.
It's in the manger,
Ah,
okay?
yep,
And what that means is that pipe is exposed to silage, corn silage,
yes,
which has acid,
you're right.
lactic acid, and other feed and cows dripping on it and water falling in there and that sort of thing. These pipes would have probably corroded, you know, over a period of time.
Yep,
I'm not really sure if I can guess how long, but I would say that they'd probably have to be replaced every 20 years or so, or maybe 30 years they would last.
yeah, yeah.
So maybe these pipes are not quite as old as we think they are. They might have been replaced once along the way.
Okay,
Not sure. The other thing is I noticed on the stanchions
yes, sir.
is you open them up
Okay, there you did it. Look at that.
and you can just close them by, you know, you
Just-
get next to the front of the cow or behind
Sure,
the cow
sure.
and you just push it like that and it latches by itself.
Latches by itself.
Because that U bolt here goes over the top and
Sure.
Anyway, we gotta make
the range of space here
Okay, I'll bring down.
between open and closed
Yes,
tells you something about the size of the animal,
This in 3 sections.
you know, that you can catch in here, because obviously a smaller calf or something would pull right back.
right,
And the fact that the cows, if they had horns,
But do you think?
yeah,
might not get in here very easily, because we had stanchions at home that were metal.
yes,
You could open them up a lot further, and when I was growing up, our jerseys had horns. Of course, they were jerseys,
Yeah.
but with a
Still.
rack on them. And here, there's not a lot of room. If you have a Holstein, I don't know
Yep.
what they had here. Holsteins, you know, and if they had horns on them, they might not get through here.
yeah.
Or they'd have to turn their head. So my question is, were the cows dehorned? But how far back did they dehorn? I guess that's my question, you know. They could have done it when they had saws. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
they could have
they
dehorned.
could have
for
dehorned them
200
that way.
years,
Yeah.
or 300 or 500 years, I don't know, but they I don't know if they dehorn their cows or not.
Whatever our length is gonna be.
Yeah.
Because the horning tool is upstairs yet.
Oh, it is. You got the dehorning tool. Okay, we should take a look at that.
Sure.
But this looks like they probably had a smaller cow in here, they put extra board on the stanchion there to make it look smaller.
Yeah.
On the stanchion itself inside.
Oh, in here. Yeah, right. Mhm. That's correct. You would put this brace in here. See that?
Why don't you show them this? I believe they use this for, on a cow that would go, like go through the fences and stuff.
Yeah, well, you
Oh.
can show them that too. Just hold it up. Can you? I don't know if you
Okay, just a piece of equipment in his hands that some cow was slightly naughty, and there was a way of treating that naughtiness.
Well, yeah, this would have been a collar that they would have fastened on a cow's neck, like this.
Uh-huh.
Like this, one or the other. It couldn't be like this. It'd have
No,
to be like
that'd be
this.
like that.
And this would keep a cow from getting between the wires of the fence. You know, you had some cows that didn't behave and they would crawl through. So
Yeah.
In fact, here's a little hook on the bottom here.
Okay, can you turn it just slightly to the side so we
Yeah,
see it?
that might even hook that bottom wire.
Oh
That'd
yeah,
be-
she'd
be a
hook,
little
all right.
Bit of an impediment, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
At the same time, the hook on the top is the other way.
Oh,
Cow could have maybe got in the fence, but not back out again.
that could be.
So I don't know how they work this one, but, and then there's this thing here. There's this little peak on here, and I'm not sure what this does.
Probably under the neck to give them a little
Under the neck, that would poke the
poke the
Maybe
cow.
poke the cow when they were pushing against the
That's-
fence, that's possible. This
yeah,
is
yeah.
another impediment.
Another impediment.
Yeah, a little discomfort for the cow.
Very
So,
good.
anyway, that's what this device is for. So
Good, thank you.
there's, how many stanchions in here, did you say?
29.
29 stanchions in this barn.
There's
Okay.
10 in this row and 19 in the other row. It's a L shape.
Do you know how old those stanchions are?
No, I don't. I have no idea.
You know, it's a little hard to tell. I'm not an expert on this. They're old. That's all I can say is they're old.
Must all been made.
I would say they could date back to the late 1800s sometime.
Yeah,
These could easily be before
We
1900.
know when they built the barn, evidently that's the way they put it in.
Yeah.
and they would possibly be made by the farmer themselves.
Yeah. It looks like they probably were.
Okay,
They could be very likely be homemade stanchions, and I'd be curious to know what kind of wood this is. It's light. It's light. You know, if it's
What, it's like?
it's light. It's real light. Is pine, is that a good, you know, does that wear okay for the cow, or could
I
it be
think
something else?
Charlie talked about something with white ash or white something. Maybe Charlie could give us something there.
I don't know if they did here, but there was tamarack around here years ago.
This would almost seem to be more like tamarack.
Tamarack was a little heavier.
I don't know, it seems to be fairly light to me.
Okay, this is the horse mangers, or horse stalls, a better word. And the mangers were to my right in the front there. And there was no concrete, as Richard has
Well, there might
indicated.
have been, but it looks to me like it was just stones with bedding on it here. I don't, here it looks like there's some concrete.
Well, I think what they did, see, years ago, in the horse stalls, they used to put down old elm planks. Horses
Oh,
stood on planks.
that's right. You're right.
We had them at home too.
Right.
That's right, there were planks.
You always had to replace the planks.
There were
That's
planks.
right, because they have the urine and everything would eat them away, and
Yeah, and the horseshoe, when you had horseshoes, they'd wear down.
they wear down. Yes.
And apparently you didn't want to keep horses on concrete.
No, no, no.
There was all elm planks put in the bottom of a horse.
Okay, very good.
For their feet, or?
Well, I
For
think
laying.
for dryness and everything else too, to keep the horse
Yeah,
dry.
horses are sensitive, you know, their digestion. If their stomach is cold, maybe they get sick, you know?
Right.
Um,
But I know most horse stalls that would have elm planks, and then you'd get some of these horses, they'd like to make a bunch of noise, they'd kick with their feet on the elm
Yeah.
plank.
Yeah, on the side.
How many horses in here? We have a petition here, we would have had one horse there.
I think they could have had, there was horse stall back there too, yeah.
Yeah,
I
too,
think
yes.
they could have had up to 6 horses.
6 horses, huh? Wow.
What about, I'm looking at the beams under here, Chris.
He took a picture of this already. I explained to him
Yeah.
that these beams must each be 40 feet long here.
These
There's
big
this
ones.
place right
Yeah,
in
the large
Oh,
ones.
okay, we gotta go through, let's see, this, and it's held up here. My God.
The barn we have at home on the Wiegand farm was built in the 1880s.
Okay,
And they used the same system of
timbers.
timbers. They actually, ours were planed on 2 sides. These are only planed maybe on one side, on the top,
Yeah,
where the
and-
boards are.
And I don't
Ours
think,
were
I don't,
planed on 2 sides.
I don't think they're planed. They used the old adze years ago and chopped them smooth.
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, they,
That's what they did.
Yeah, I mean, it
the
didn't have
broad axe or
that
whatever they call it?
flat, you know.
Right. They called that an adze.
Oh.
Well, instead of like an axe where it was turned, with the handle, it was turned 90 degrees to the handle.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
And our barn was built just as a wooden structure in the 1880s, and then in 1898 they put the foundation, the stone foundation under it.
Oh.
And that was done kind of around the neighborhood. They lifted the whole
lifted
barn
the whole
up
barn up, huh?
and put a basement under the barn, which
Okay.
is what you see here.
Mm-hmm,
So I don't know what dates this is, but my guess is based on the beams here. Barn goes back into the 1800s.
Oh, yeah.
And when they put the foundation under here, I don't know, but that looks pretty much the way we did it, you know, with these windows that they're shaped, you know, they're angled like this, and this could have been before 1900 also, or around 1900 when they put the, you know, the foundation under here.
Okay. Remnants of an old bobsled here, also stored in the barn. And would this be the front, or where does this all start?
This is the front portion of
This
it.
is the front portion here.
And the
Okay.
part standing against the wall, the back is the back
There's
portion.
the back portion, and then they
There's
had a.
another portion to the other bobsleigh upstairs in the barn.
Okay.
In fact, there's added a beam up right here. They laid a beam across the top that goes around that beam.
Okay. Okay, Chris, maybe while you're doing that, could you indicate what you're interested here?
Oh, yeah, well, we got this bobsleigh, and half of it was over here, and half of it was over here. So
Okay, so you're mating them up, huh?
we're gonna put them back together. I think they were a matched pair, that's what they're saying, because there's
All
a
right.
couple other pieces of bobsleighs around
Yes.
that they're keeping, so we're gonna try to put this one with the other one.
All right.
And it's a little rough shape, but it's still nice to have an example
Oh,
of it. And
sure.
I'm personally kind of into those, so
Oh,
I
good,
pick them
good.
up even if I can't use them for something on
You
that
can always
particular
put something
project.
together. Sure, very good.
Good.
Now that is the front end, I presume, right?
Yep, that's the front, that's right.
Okay.
And there would be a tie to the back, although the front and backs are almost identical,
All right,
and it would just depend on how they were rigging them up.
all right.
It's
Okay,
interesting on this one over
Yes,
here,
sir.
I
Yes,
like
sir.
this little fixture on this.
okay.
This is, it would be pulling forward now, and out of the four pieces.
Drew has a hard hat on, which means a little bit of work to be done, but he's got a few moments to give us a little bit of insight into some piece of equipment here. Go right ahead, please.
All right, well, this is half of that bobsleigh we were looking at on the other side. And what I liked about this one is got the perfect example of the brake on it, which we discovered last time. Out of
Okay.
the four contact points, there'd be one brake, and it's really...
Okay,
it's
let me get over there.
It's a ratchet, if you will, so that it could never slide backwards. This would run down on the ground. They'd pull it forward, and
Oh,
if
it
it
would-
ever tried to slide backwards, it would dig into the snow or ice
Oh.
and break it so that it wouldn't
Sure.
wouldn't pull back. So
Let me
on a
get
hill,
over.
the horses could stop, wouldn't need the effort to
Yeah,
hold it in
you wouldn't
place
need to
so
have to
much.
worry about that area. But it would trail along, flopping around as it
Well,
would.
and I suppose if you ever had a reason to want it to back up, you
Yeah.
just flip it up. But I think
Yeah.
that stayed down most of the time for operations.
And they only did it on one side, or?
One out of the four. That's all.
That's all they did?
All it needed. Yep.
Oh, for heaven's sake. Very good. That's very interesting. I never knew that existed. Never did. And this pole that's standing up here, is that anything with the reins, or would they
This
tie?
pole here?
This one, vertical one right here.
Well, this is where they probably hauled wood with this.
Oh,
So
okay.
the wood would be between this, and the back half would have a similar
All
stave
right.
on it, and they would rest in them. It's hard to believe now how much weight this could carry because it's so soft and rotted, but I
Yeah.
can imagine they carried a few thousand pounds real easy on here
Okay,
when it was in better shape.
okay. Now, did they, in your knowledge of this type of equipment, did they make these by themselves, the farmers themselves, or did they purchase them from some other company?
Pieces like this were individually made by the farmer. I mean, they made whatever they needed for
Yeah.
these kind of pieces, but the main runners
Yes,
would have been specially cut, and it took a special talent
yes,
to be able to cut those. So they would buy those generally
Okay.
from a neighbor or somebody that had that skill.
sure.
The same way with stone bolts. They would have the front stone bolts that would be cut
Yes.
the same way, and that was a special technique of sawing, and you didn't find it everywhere. So
Okay,
it'd be the same way.
okay, very
This
good.
piece here
Yes,
is actually gonna be bolted onto this. This would,
Oh.
that rod goes between this tips down.
Sure.
The rod goes in this heavy, or in this channel here.
okay. Oh, I see, it drops into a channel.
Sure, sure.
Oh, for,
We'd just pull off this little makeshift pin here.
Yeah.
Slide that out and you could put the draw tongue in there. All right, gentlemen, should we load up a few items?
we got a reluctant employee here.
Yeah, long and heavy, pile and stuff between it.
Yeah.
Kind of put the load so that bigger stuff holds the little stuff on there, so we don't have to.
Well, the little stuff is going in this trailer. I gotta take this trailer back today.
Yeah.
That big trailer will sit till it's either loaded or till I've got time to come back and
I'll
get it.
just carry some stuff out of here.
We're going to start with the ladder first?
Yeah, why don't you guys put the ladder on the long wagon and I'll put a few of these pieces in the short one. Now, it's not proper to step through the floor, just a reminder, okay?
We
We haven't talked about the barn here yet on the tape, have we?
No, not yet. Not really.
Talked about the barn.
Piece of board here, and there's a question pertaining to its origin.
Yeah,
Well,
that
we
is
don't know.
mahogany. There's
I
no
don't know
doubt
if
in
we
my
know
mind.
where.
Yep, that's
Ah.
mahogany.
This is mahogany.
He used to work at Keel Furniture, we just heard, so.
Ah,
So this came home with him one day in his lunch bucket. It's a nice piece of wood, though.
yes, okay. And we've got some timbers by your feet there, Chris. And what is that material? Nobody knows, huh?
Nobody knows, but it's not very heavy, actually.
Okay.
Imagine it's fine.
I think it's pine.
All right. Very good. There.
This is a bed spring,
Oh, the old timer.
the old timer, yep.
Okay.
Put a mattress on top of it, it'll work just as well as any other spring.
And that's,
All righty.
I can't tell you how old it is.
box is a two-person job.
You want that on your
It's a metal,
Yeah,
Okay.
if we can, that'd be good. Then
Very good. Thank you,
It's
Richard.
old.
It's old. Thank you. And you guys are hauling out what there? A coal?
It's coke from the forge. We took the forge a couple of weeks ago, so this is gonna be put with it.
Okay.
I'll bet you we weigh within 5 pounds.
This is a system that was used to put long hay in the barn years ago.
Okay.
We have up under the roof, at the picture of the roof is steel track
Okay.
all the way along the full length of the barn. And as you can see to the right of us, there's the old carrier that ran along the track.
Okay. Is that over right in the,
It's at the other end.
right at the end? Okay, great.
Way over at the end of the barn.
All right.
And from that carrier, there's a long rope coming down through a series of pulleys.
Yeah.
Comes down here, and then it comes down to the front of the barn where there was a pulley attached down low.
Okay. Coming down.
So when you get down there, there was a pulley attached down low, and the hay rope would go through there, and you'd attach horses to the front, and they would walk out, pull the rope out,
Yeah.
and they would take you used slings here years ago.
Okay.
putting hay,
Yes.
Which would take the slings up to the track,
Yeah.
up into a catch up there,
Yeah.
and either, which way, depending which way you had it set, it would usually go right or left.
Okay, that's right. They had that capability, huh?
And then you'd let it get to the end, and then you had a small rope on slings, which you called the trip rope.
All right.
So when it was ready to go, when it was over where it was supposed to be, they would pull the trip rope, and that load of hay would dump out down into the mouth.
Okay.
So
Now, what happened when they pulled the rope, it tripped and the sling opened up? Is that
sling
right?
opened up, and the hay would drop down into the mow, and then they usually had to have somebody in the mow to spread the hay.
Oh, yes.
And that was quite a job in this barn, because this barn is wider than normal barns. I believe this barn's 45 feet wide.
Really? Wow.
That
That
was
is
quite a
wide.
job to spread the hay, because
Yes.
from the center to the outside was
Correct.
over 20 feet.
Okay.
And then when the horses were to the end of the rope, that the track was way up, somebody would have to pull the rope back, and the driver of the horses would come back again with the horses, and somebody had to be there to pull the rope back. And then
Okay.
it's the same thing happened over again.
Okay. So the man on the load probably had to pull it back to wherever the catch was in the track. And then
Right.
she would release, perhaps?
Then it release on the catch and come down again, down to the load, and then he'd rehook this. They use slings here, I know, but some people used regular big grab forks. And then
Yeah.
they'd have to set the grab forks into the hay on the
Okay.
wagon again, and then same thing over again.
Okay. Boy, a lot of labor intensive, huh?
Yeah, a lot harder than nowadays.
A lot harder. No, I'll tell you. Very good. Well, thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
One is asking the questions, and one will probably have all the answers. Go right ahead, please.
Richard Wiegand asking Emmit Trucho. We got, I was looking up there and I saw a perch
Yes.
on
on the end of the barn here, and it
Okay.
looks like it's designed in such a way as to be able to work on the hay track, you know. So I mean, Emmett can explain maybe what that was for.
Okay,
I believe it was built there, so if they had trouble with the carrier, that they could climb up on the end of the barn before the mow was full and stand on
Okay.
the perch and work on the carrier to repair it.
okay. Either probably from even left over winter, they oiled a few things up possibly before they used it too.
Could be. There's one on each end of the barn.
Oh, there is, okay.
And that end too.
Oh, there is, okay.
So evidently that's what they use it for.
Okay,
We have a carrier in our barn at home, but I never seen a perch on either end.
No, I don't know. I think, I don't know. That's all I can figure out.
sure, sure. That's, I think you're right on. I'll take a shot at that. Okay, Richard and the other gentleman were talking about a perch that was able to get to by a ladder of some sort and to be able to stand on while they either lubricated or adjusted something or fixed something on that carriage. That was a good idea. And they had one on each end of the barn, according to Richard, so that they could do work from either end.
You could put just a regular long ladder
Yeah,
up against,
up against there, but at least,
and then get onto that other ladder there on the side of it.
sure, very good idea. Come here and he'll identify himself and he wants to add some information pertaining to the barn structure. Go right ahead, please.
Okay, the first thing I wanted to mention was these support beams in the middle here that hold up the roof.
Okay, let me go up a little bit higher, okay.
These here, this is a fairly strong, this is a hardwood of some kind. I've seen other barns where these beams are actually a little thicker, they might be a foot thick. And even the ones across here, these are what, 8 inches or something like that.
Okay,
It's like an 8 by 8.
Yeah, 8 by 8, but they're hardwood, they look like they're really hard.
okay,
And I've seen some that were a foot, but one thing I noticed was the supports that go and hold up the roof.
okay,
Other piece, and I don't know the technical names for these, but in our barn at home, they're on an angle.
Right.
The angle from the roof down, and they, I don't know, the angle is maybe pretty steep, but the angle maybe more toward the center, where this other beam comes here.
okay, could you point, okay,
That one there would probably end up right about here.
all right,
And on the same on the other side, that will end up just a little bit inside of this one.
okay,
On that side. The
Now-
other thing I've noticed now is just looking
Yeah.
back to these,
yeah,
where these perches are again. We've got 2 doors up here.
yes. We had a question on that and the gentleman could give you another answer for that one.
Yeah, well, I have a theory.
Good,
My theory is if the hay is a little moist when they brought it in, it's a way to get air through the barn.
Yeah. Well, we did talk on that.
Yeah, okay, you talked about
Ventilation.
that, yeah.
We didn't have that theory where the hay was wet, but even when he worked in here,
That there'd be ventilation, because there's a
Ventilation.
door over there too.
Right.
There's one there.
okay,
And I actually added a door, a couple of those things in our barn, just
Yeah.
to get ventilation
Sure.
in.
I got a question for you, Richard, and it's in regard, our barn was built back in 1936, but there was wooden pins in there to hold the beams to each beam.
Yeah.
Is this mortise and tenon and wooden pins in here also?
yeah. You can see it right up here, exactly. You can see the pins right up here.
Looking at some timbers that are supporting the framework of the barn, and apparently there must be a tongue and groove or a mortise and tenon or whatever they call it. And I believe their gentlemen here are indicating there's a pin, wooden pin, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, it wouldn't make no.
Like a dowel. Okay. Now, as we go up that beam that's actually going up toward the roof at this point, there's some other bracing that's involved. Now, how is that put together there?
That's all tenon and pins too.
Okay, what was that again, please?
Up on top there.
Yes, sir, what was that?
That's all pins and tenons.
That's
and
all?
what they would do with these barns, they got laid out down on the ground. They had a whole crew that would cut the lumber, or this was all hand hewn,
Yes,
and then they would mortise everything down on the ground,
okay,
make it fit, drill the holes, and then they had a barn raising party
Okay.
The whole everybody got together, and then they raised the whole barn. Normally, the old guys that were did the modern tennis work, they were always pretty good. Usually everything fit good when they got the thing put up. So.
But they would have to pull this thing up or lift it up from the floor itself and kind of pivot it up into
They
position?
use long pike poles to push it up.
Okay, all right.
Then they'd push these beams up. Then they'd have a guy riding all those beams up there, kneeling them all the time.
Oh,
and
really?
A guy riding the ridge.
Oh, not my kind of job, I'll tell you. Yes, sir.
Norbert Orth told me they rebuilt their barn down on Union Road there in
They got that big hip roof
1940.
now.
Yeah, he's got that, it's like a gambrel kind of roof. I think.
Okay,
And I thought it was an Erbsteizer barn, because Erbsteizer from Halen built all that type of barn. He said,
Yeah.
no. He said, they got a guy from St. Nazianz.
oh,
It was a name like Bauer or something, I don't know, but it was from St. Nazianz. It wasn't a long name.
okay.
And Norbert said that, you know, they set all that stuff out too.
Bushman.
Bushman, yeah.
Bushman.
They set all that stuff out and they had it all measured and all fitted and everything like that. And then the guy said, tomorrow I want 100 strong men here.
Right.
Wow,
You know, he specified, he said, guys that can work all day. He says, I don't want any old guys. He says, I want young men, strong men, 100 men here at, you know, at 7 or 6 in the morning. He says,
wow.
to start working. Then he came and then they put the whole thing up.
Right. It was all laid out on the ground.
It was all laid out on the ground.
And then they pushed these up, and then that whole top piece usually was in one outfit with those beams. Then they'd lay it on top there, and then they'd have long pike poles, and they'd push it up, straighten up, and then somebody would put all those braces.
Wow,
I wanted to make a comment about the floor.
yes, okay. Oh, yes.
In some barns, the threshing floor had thicker lumber on it. It looks to me like it's consistent across here, you know, like you could drive a horse, team of horses, or a tractor or anything
We
on
did,
this. Yeah.
in here,
Yeah.
in this part.
But, well, typically what they did was they had, you know, like 2-inch thick planks or thicker on this threshing floor because it took all of the traffic. But then you would find just regular boards sometimes on the rest of the floor, you know, just where the hay was on or the straw was on. But this barn here has got thick boards I see all the way across. You
Well,
could
and
drive.
originally, when we did the shocks of green, they would all be stacked on that side.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, okay.
until they were thrashed. You know, the shocks you
Years
brought
ago,
them
they
in.
thrashed out of the barn.
We thrashed out of the
Oh,
barn.
you thrashed out of the barn,
You
okay.
thrashed out of the barn, you had to bring it all in. First of all, you did it with the binder, with the horses and the
Yeah.
binder, we did it. And then when the tractor came, well, then you took the pole off and you put a new pole on.
Yeah.
And then, in those years when we started with the tractor, then we no longer brought it into the barn, we just made shocks
Yeah,
outside.
'cause
And just
that's-
then after a while, you put the bundles onto the wagon and then you brought it in here and thrashed.
Was the threshing machine in the building or out of the building?
I think it was more over there.
Would have been over there.
Yeah, outside, and then sometimes we had a straw stack too, that was down there.
Yeah.
And you thought the straw was over on this side, right?
I think that was a strong one way back.
Back there, so I can't quite remember anymore how that was, which was the straw wall, but I know of the hay because we always had slings. And then you took the horses and you had to go so far in order to raise the sling. And then, you know, my dad would be with one of those poles, they pushed that sling and it
Oh,
would
that
swing.
way, they'd rock it.
They'd rock it so that hay would fall into the corners of the barn, and then my mother and I had to trip it. Just at the right time when it would be swing way out and when it would be at the point where it was still.
Yeah.
And then it would drop. And then my dad had to go up into the mow and take the hay and spread it apart.
Kathy, I gotta ask a question. How good were you at that tripping?
Oh, I was pretty good. I was more like a boy than a girl in those years. I did a lot of hard work, and it didn't bother me, and the tripping. But if you tripped wrong, don't think you didn't get it from your dad. And one time we were hauling hay, and that was with the tractor, and it was a short row, and I missed the row, and he said, one more missing of a row, and there'll be no keel picnic. But I never missed another row.
Keel picnic was pretty important.
Yeah, that was pretty important.
That was important.
In those days, yeah.
Now, who drove the horses to lift the hay
To lift the hay,
Yeah.
well, my sister Vanny did once in a while, or my mother did too.
Okay.
And then, of course, you had to stay with them down there so that, they didn't back up right away. So
Sure. Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, so then, the track was.
Yeah,
There's the
yeah.
track up there where it went on to the.
Okay. Maybe we'll have you identify yourself, Kathy, and a little bit of history, too.
Oh, my name is Kathy Sixel, and actually it was Kathleen Lechler at one time, and this is the barn where I grew up in. I mean, this is the farm where I grew up.
Okay.
And that was many years ago. I think I left it maybe 48 or 49 years ago.
Really?
And I do remember quite a few of the things just getting back here again. So.
All right.
And right now, I think the barn is in bad shape, and it's in the process, it's going to be torn down.
Okay. Just before it would fall down on
Before
accident.
it would fall down, that's correct.
But it was well built. I can see that there was a lot of engineering went into this building.
Oh, okay, yeah. And I don't think my grandfather built it, somebody else did. We will look up at the deed. I have that at my house.
Okay.
And we will see what it says.
Sure.
Okay?
Now, did you help with milking also, or?
Not really too much.
Okay.
Because there were only us two girls, so we had to wash the dishes in the house.
Oh, I see.
While my mother and dad milked. But I can tell you pretty much about the milking bin. And I had to manure the barn when my dad worked. And I was probably 9 or 10 years old.
Really?
And he worked nights. And so then my mother and my sister and I had to do chores.
Okay.
And I manured the barn every night with the manure bucket.
Wow.
And I also threw out the silage from the silo.
That was a bear. I could
That
see
was a
that one.
bear.
We took a video of that thing, and that is a tremendous hole in there.
And it would freeze in the winter time, and you had to have a pick. And you had to
Yes.
pick it off
Yes,
all around
all
the
around.
edges. Yeah, so maybe after a while when we go downstairs, we can look at the cart where I threw it in.
Okay, very
Yeah.
good. We appreciated that. Very
Okay,
good. Thank
thank
you,
you.
Kathy. I'm bringing out a huge wooden barrel.
Yes, and last time he took out a beer barrel.
That's right.
They had parties here too, huh?
And this was probably a butchering barrel, I would think.
Okay.
What do you think its purpose was, Richard?
There's a sign on here that says it's diamond alka chemicals. That's the sign that says on here.
A decal, if you will, on this particular barrel that Richard brought out. And what do we assume at this point, Richard?
Well, it says diamond, and then it looks like it says alka or something here, and then it says chemical, I believe.
Okay.
And your guess is as good as mine. This could have been salt.
Okay.
We're saying, because they would have, somebody would have got, salt in a barrel.
Sure. Okay. Very good. And it's called a stave type barrel, I believe.
Stave barrel, and the staves are not thick enough for a liquid.
Okay.
I wouldn't.
All right.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
Very good. Thank you. Yes, Kathy.
I'm Kathy
Oh.
Sixel, and here's the picture of the original farm. A lot of the buildings are torn down today, and I will explain it all when we lay it flat somewhere, is what it is.
A young lady here, and she's got some memories here at this place we're looking at, and she's got a picture to show us. Go right ahead, please.
This is my home, and it was my home for the first 18 years of my life. It is located in the Township of Eaton, and at that time, County Junk C was not a highway yet. It was all swamp down there, and you had to come in from Highway 32, and it was a long driveway that went around a curve like this.
Okay.
And you can see this is all stone fences. Along the driveway was stone fences, and all trees were growing there until maybe in the 50s or so. Mm-hmm. Then they went to work and widened the whole driveway. And you came down the driveway here, and this was the house.
Okay.
And we were fortunate that we had running water in the house. There was a huge tank upstairs. My grandmother was sick, so they had to have water. And it came from the pump house here. And they would pump it up. There would be a thing that my sister and I would turn and make the water come into this tank, so we had a regular flush toilet.
No kidding. So in other words, they pumped the water into some sort of reservoir up in the upper part of the house?
Yeah, it was a huge round tank like this.
Wow.
And they put that water in there so that she could flush the toilet. But our water sink was right in the kitchen. There was a little area, and that's where the sink was.
Okay.
And this was the summer kitchen, where every home had a summer kitchen. And in the summertime, you did all your cooking in the summer kitchen. And you would sleep in your house, but you did all your cooking. It would be cooler there.
Sure.
And you also would keep your house clean.
Sure.
this was the kitchen, and that was the summer kitchen, and it would keep your house clean because the thrasher crews would be coming. And this area was an apple orchard. That's all apple trees in there, except over here were plum trees.
Okay.
And this was a chicken barn when we would get the young chickens, and then the pullets would be in there, and of course you would bring them over into the hen house after a while as they grew up. And this was the hen house, and this was a machine shed. This was the blacksmith shop, and this was the sheep barn. And back in this area are a lot of hills, and we had a lot of sheep, and so we always call it the sheep hills because that's where the sheep were. And this was a tractor shed, and that building my grandpa built.
Okay.
And down in here we had machinery too. That was a storage shed also.
Oh, underneath there.
Underneath here, yeah.
Oh.
This was built on top of, you can see this is actually a hill. And this would be the silo. And when we harvest the corn, my dad would be on the bottom feeding the corn in, and I would have to shovel. And one time it got full and full, and he kept shoveling and shoveling, and I started crying, and it all ran out. And I also had to go to work, and I was maybe between 9 and 12. My dad worked nights, so my mother and my sister, Vanny, we had to do the chores, so I had to throw all the silage out of the silo. This would be the granary, and this would be the barn. The livestock was tied up here, and then here the milk cows began, and then they'd be along there, and then the horses were tied up.
Oh, yes.
And here would be the pig barn.
Where was that again, please?
Right over here is the pig barn.
Ah, here we go.
Right there was the pig barn, and it was a unique pig barn because it had a balcony, and it had a neat little ladder going up, and the pigs would walk up there, and they would sleep in the little balcony.
I mean, they would actually climb a little bit of a staircase or ladder?
Yes, it was like a ramp that went up, and they climbed up there every night, and they slept up in this little balcony up in this loft. And then these were the corn cribs. There were the corn cribs here.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
And we used to have to chase the cows, and there must have been stone fences at one time, and all those rocks had rolled into the lane, and we had to step all over so we wouldn't step on the stones, and we chased them around here, all the way around here.
Oh my gosh.
And then way through the woods, and the woods is 80 acres, and on the other side was the pasture. And we did that from 5-6 years on with our dog.
That was your job, huh?
That was always, and we always had to get the cows too.
For water and everything, huh?
Well, there was a spring.
Oh, okay.
There was a spring, so we didn't have to bring them back for water.
Okay.
But your dog was so very valuable.
Oh.
You know, that dog was at your side, and you know there were wild animals, but we were never afraid because you had your dog.
Sure.
And there was always a leader of the cows.
Yes.
One would lead the cows through the woods.
Correct.
And then you'd have stragglers where all you would do is say, sick them to your dog, and that dog rounded that cow up, and they bite them in the
hock a little bit.
And there your cows would come, and they'd come right home. And each cow knew what stanchion to go into.
Oh, that way too.
Yeah, every cow knew what stanchion. Here would be a manure pile.
Okay.
I don't think we can see the track on this, on the picture.
I don't see it.
No, I don't see it. I cannot see it
But I
on
know
there,
they
but the
talked
manure
about-
track went out there.
Now, there was this gentleman that had been talking with us, and he indicated that one day some youngsters went out on this manure track with a bucket or something, and it broke down.
Oh, I don't recall that.
You don't recall it?
No, it probably was my children and his children.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
I don't think it was him and Donald, my husband.
Okay.
So-
And again, you lived here now for X amount of years. What years?
18, until I was 18.
Could you give us some sort of
1955.
1955?
1937 to 1955.
Okay.
Or
okay.
56, then I left and got married.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. And how did your husband find you? Because you're kind of isolated back here a little bit.
My husband was a cousin to my brother-in-law, Emmit.
Okay.
So it was Emmett's fault. He dragged him
He dragged him in here. I'm sure he didn't regret that.
Well, I hope not.
No. Thank you very much, Kathy.
You're welcome.
Upstairs into the granary area here, and I'll join her right away. Here we got some noise in the background. We got a crew working today, but Kathy has joined me up here in the granary, and to point out a couple things, go right ahead.
This door would be open, and when they would do the thrashing, they would have a pipe through here, and that would roll the green into the various bins that were up here.
Okay,
And in later years, my dad would have a man come, and he had his own truck, and it was like a feed grinder.
Okay.
The feed grinder came,
Yeah.
and then later, then we had our own feed grinder. My dad ground his own feed.
all right, very good.
And my dad was Mike Lechler.
All right, that's good. And your mother's name
And
was?
my mother's name was Florence Rob Lechler Benversi.
Oh,
And she
okay.
came from near Steintal.
All right,
Yeah,
very good.
so, and they were married for, well, he died when he was 66, so he died young.
Yes,
Very young, right,
very young.
Jerry?
Well, my dad did the same thing. He died when
Yeah.
he was 67.
Oh, okay, and our mothers are both living, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, isn't that different, huh?
I'm with Kathy, and she's going to point out a couple things. Go right ahead.
This is a big wooden wheel, and that went with the grain shaft.
Okay.
A shaft from the grain elevator or something. I cannot exactly remember that anymore.
All
But
right.
these are the slings, and that's what we used where the hay was in. They would lay flat.
Okay.
And as you pulled with the horses, they would go like this, and they would clamp together on the top.
Okay.
And that is how you got your hay into the mow.
All right.
So, and here we have another wooden barrel.
Yes, I
And
see.
this is a part of a cream separator.
Okay.
And this is the old putz mill. That's what we used to clean the oats years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, and
Okay,
that
I
one
can see
looks-
the blades in there of the fan that was
Sure, the
there.
fan, I guess you in English it is called a fan mill.
Okay.
Yeah, and here's slings, Richard.
Wow.
So maybe we, I don't know, you said Emmett wants to keep all of this?
Well, we did never came up here.
Yeah, big, but those were the slings that we used in the barn, and there would be all bins in here, and then one kind of oats would go into one bin, and
Sure.
another kind into another bin. And I think on the floor there's holes, and that's where the chutes would go.
Right here. You're stepping on one.
Yeah.
Okay, one chute there.
Right there. There's a chute
Yeah.
there.
Oh, there's a chute.
There,
Okay.
that's where the chutes would go to bring the oats down.
Okay. Down into the stable or wherever.
Down to the stable, right, or
Okay.
to the grinder when he came, or when my dad went to the mill.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have gunny bags, and some of the gunny bags are right up there yet.
Okay, let's pan over there. Okay.
Oh, and there's a pail up there too yet. Wonder what's in that pail, I suppose maybe nails.
I see there's horse collars, I think.
Horse collar and horse harness,
Okay.
so,
Yeah, yeah.
We're just noticing we have what looks like 3 harnesses,
It could be 3 complete sets.
complete sets of harnesses here in the granary.
yeah, and there's collars standing all over,
Yeah.
or hanging all over, they're not standing, they're all over. Haul it for wherever you wanted to haul it to.
Okay. And you could slide that lower plate under the bottom of the bag, right?
Right, you would slide it under and you'd pick it up like this. It was so really, I suppose, something like a dolly,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Yeah, it's for carrying bags.
Yeah, bags of oats
We have one
and
like that.
feed.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, if we could have one of those, we'd be happy.
A lot of antique old things that were sort of handmade here. This stool was not
Yeah,
purchased.
It's an old stool. It's got wooden legs in it.
Yeah, it was handmade. It was a milking stool, perhaps. And there's a.
We would use these.
That was for bales, or
Bale,
bales.
sure, after a while when we baled this,
Yeah.
that was the
Bale.
hook.
Sure.
Bale to hook, that when you came off of the baler,
Yeah.
Sure.
you would take them and you would stack them.
Yeah.
I
Instead of-
missed the bale one time and stuck it.
Oh,
Oh.
That
God.
hurt for a long
That
time.
hurts
but
for a
I
while.
never went to the doctor and it's okay. Doesn't bother me anymore.
So should we take that?
You know, the kind of hose we have here. This looks like a fuel hose to me.
Does it smell like fuel?
Yeah, well, it looks like fuel. It's got the, it's got that woven. that
Oh,
was just
okay,
like-
braided.
That was just like the gas hose we had at home.
Yeah, a braided thing.
Yeah, it looks like some kind of fuel hose, and there would have been a pump on this side. This would have been just to hold the
Stabilize
thing
it.
from, stabilize, yeah.
Okay.
And you would pump it from something to something,
Yeah. Okay.
is my guess.
Very good.
So that's a correction. It's not a part of a cream
I
separator.
doubt it.
Okay.
I would doubt it.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Very good. Thank you.
It's for fuel.
Gentlemen, and something has been uncovered here, and he'd like to explain what it's all about. Go right ahead, please.
This was a tank that we had talked about earlier that came from the water pump, from the old well pump over there, from the overhead pipes that we had talked about coming over to the barn. And they came across here and came down and filled this tank here.
Okay.
And this tank in turn was pumped full, and there's an overflow. If it overflowed, it would flow down into the milk cooling tank, and from the milk cooling tank there was another tank outside for
Okay.
a stock tank,
Uh-huh.
and it would run and fill that stock tank for the cattle.
My goodness, they made use of that water. They didn't waste one drop.
No, and then they had to watch it, that when the tank was full, that they didn't go to town and leave the thing run all day. So. But then this tank here in turn fed the drinking cup float that we showed you before
Okay.
in the barn there,
Yes.
and kept the level in the drinking cups.
Sure.
And also the cooling tank.
Okay.
But when the tank got empty, they had to start the pump again. And
All right. So they didn't wear and tear on the pump. Wasn't that great a deal? They let it do what it had to do, and then the gravity would take care of it for quite a length of time.
right, see, and then they would pump here, and they'd also fill the tank up in the second floor in the house.
Okay.
What would happen in the second floor in the house if that tank would overflow it?
Well, you know what happened when Annie and I forgot to shut the pump down?
Oh.
It would go through the ceiling.
Oh no.
Oh, yeah, there was no float or nothing in there.
No, there was no float, and you had to be precise, or it came, went through the
Oh
ceiling.
my gosh.
And my dad was rather excited.
The other consideration is here, how do you protect all this water system from freezing?
Yes.
Well, that drained. The pipe were overhead,
Yeah.
and they were pitched enough so they would drain out.
So the pipes would drain out, so you could run the thing in the wintertime,
Okay.
and the water would, it would empty out,
Yeah.
so it wouldn't be frozen and blocked, and then it would flow and then fill this. And I
Okay.
presume down in there, it wouldn't freeze because it was
no,
under
it was
the
below
ground.
ground, and the water was like 50 degrees.
And
so
was always flowing.
Yeah.
And you would have a layer of snow over the top.
Snow over the
water
top or
was
whatever.
usually
Sure.
50 degrees
Yeah.
when it came into the
Yeah.
tank.
Sure.
And the house pipe came in on the dormer of the house, more or less above the windows there, so that drained back to the pump. when it-
Okay. I'm going to take a shot of that what you talked about. A group of people here, and we're pointing out the cistern or tank that's next to the barn, and you can indicate where we're at here.
That's on the southwest corner of the barn.
Okay.
Right below here is that water tank
All right.
underneath there.
And a water pipe would have come across, you feel?
Would have come across from this pump house here down to here.
Okay.
And then here was another pipe going up to the house,
All right. And that went to the gable of the house and fed that tank in there.
up in the attic.
And that's the one that Kathy happened to let run over a little bit, huh?
Right.
What's the year of this photo?
I don't
Yes,
know, it
that's a
didn't
good one,
say on
Richard.
It's an
there.
aerial photo, so they had planes.
Yeah.
That's pretty old. Look at
Yeah,
the
it's
cow
pretty
lane.
old.
There's no bushes here at all yet.
No,
Yeah.
See, there's
and
no,
there was that thorn apple tree.
yeah, there are no bushes here at all.
Okay. As
And
long as
there's hardly no trees up here. And that
No,
was,
and look at, you can't even tell that that's a steep hole in here, and so when you have an aerial photo.
see, here's that big tree, but the other trees aren't even on there yet.
okay. Could
Well,
we ask?
I would have to think it'd be in the 40s and so.
Oh yeah.
I would think that was taken in the 1940s.
Okay.
Right.
Now, as far as directions on that photo, could you tell me which is north, south, east, and west, please?
This would be north,
This is north.
and up here is south.
That's south up that way, on an angle, sort of. Okay.
Right, roughly that way.
Mm-hmm.
And this would be west. Going here.
Okay, that would be
Up
west.
The driveway goes sort of southwest.
Okay. All right, very good. And this farmland that we're looking at here was all of the farmland of the farm?
No, there's farmland beyond this woods on the
Oh,
other
there's
side.
farmland beyond that.
The
Okay.
woods is 80 acres, and then there's real much farmland on the other side of the woods yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. Boy, those aerial photos can really tell us a lot. Okay.
See, this was the old, see,
That was the sheep barn.
yeah.
No, and that was the tractor shed. That was the blacksmith shop. This was the garage where we had the car, and then underneath we had tractors and machinery.
Yeah.
This was the hen house.
Okay.
Well, I did this once already.
Yeah, that's okay.
So,
What's the idea of the vent on top of the silo?
Most of the silos had vents like that.
supposed to
Even
let
your
the
cement
gas out.
silos now, if you look, a lot of them have
To let the gas out.
a louver on top.
And
First, the
Richard, I
gas
was
is-
telling Jerry that was a real fancy pig barn. There was a loft in it.
Yeah, that's
and
a
there
good
was
story.
a ramp, and the pigs went up those steps, and they slept on the top. You
Wow.
remember that, Emmett?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was real fancy.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Well, that's interesting.
And
Thinking
this
about
was
that.
an apple orchard.
That silo again, because there's different gases that would form. One of them was the nitric oxide, the brown gas that would sink down and that would go down your silo chute and into your barn.
Oh, really?
And you could see it on the floor. That stuff you never wanted to breathe because you breathe it in and it forms nitric acid. It's
Wow.
it's NO2. Well, NO2 I think it is, nitrogen oxide.
Uh-huh.
And you breathe it in and it's nitric acid and it destroys your lungs.
Wow.
And some farmers, one of the Dershes got that silo gas in his lungs. The
Yeah,
other
yeah.
thing is, when the silage was fermenting,
Yes.
it took all the oxygen out. So if the brown gas didn't kill you, the lack of air,
There, up there.
Yeah.
the first couple of weeks, you didn't go up there and pitch any silage out unless you
No.
had a lot of openings up there.
Right.
Okay.
And what we always did was we left our blower on, the tractor.
Oh,
And then before we pitched the silage for maybe a half an hour, we'd run the blower and
Sure,
that would just
sure.
force all
Force
the air,
everything out.
you know, and get oxygen up there so you could, and we'd leave it run.
sure.
And you'd go up there and pitch your silage out and
Yeah.
then it would go. But
Okay.
it took a couple weeks for that silage to ferment and,
Yeah,
you know, to
yeah.
settle and.
Was there a problem also with mold? Because when
Around the edges.
the top surface and the
Top surface and the
edges would have some mold, and I heard people getting sick from that too when they went to open the silo.
Yeah, you can get sick from that, and the cows don't like it too much either. I mean,
Yeah.
they can eat a little bit of it, but
Yeah.
if you didn't start pitching silage right away, you would have a top layer that would mold, and you'd have to throw that off.
Okay.
And then in the winter time, the silage froze along the edges, and then that would mold along those edges.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you got to make sure that you knock that stuff down before it got above you.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
That wall could fall down and kill you, and it did kill some
Sure.
farmers.
It did.
Sure.
It was an Ecker kid that killed it.
Yeah, that was the not that long ago. What, 20
Well,
years maybe?
20, 30 years.
Yeah, I remember when that happened.
Okay. Well, very good. Very good.
I
Thank
wanted
you.
to make one other comment
Yes.
with the lanes on here and the fences. You know, you got a gate in the corner here, and then you would have gates where you would, you know, bring cows and then you let them in a field, like you took them around the corner, and then you have a gate over here.
Mm-hmm.
And those gates were just, you know, 2x4s or poles with netting on them,
They all
Or
use
wire?
They all use cedar rails.
cedar rails
Cedar
or something
rails.
on them, okay?
So,
And they
okay.
would hang independently. I mean, you just pick them up, you know. Well,
Oh.
what they did was you where your gate was in the lane, you would swing it so that you would close off the lane and then the cows would go in. Or if you didn't
Oh,
want
that
them
way.
to go in, you'd close the gate.
Yep.
And usually the gate wasn't maybe as long as the lane or almost as long as the lane, but there was two posts with a brace across.
Oh, yeah.
And you would build that brace in where the gate would be fitting over it like this.
Yeah, yeah.
And that would hold the gate up on one side, and then you'd pick the other side of the gate up, and you just swing it around, and then
Uh-huh.
you strap it, you know, with a chain or something, strap it shut.
Okay.
I have not seen any of these gate braces anywhere anymore because all these old fences are gone. I think David Yinnick might still have some on his farm. I'd like to take a picture of one
Yeah,
sometime,
yeah. Very good.
because that was just a practical, simple
Sure,
technology.
sure. Very good.
At that time.
Thank you.
All right, nice to meet you, Yvonne.
That's Diane's son.
All right.
We've just recruited somebody here. Or
Oh,
what?
yeah, there's no doubt.
No doubt.
We're looking for work and he's good at it, right?
Boy, are you lucky.
Whose car have you got?
My neighbors.
Oh, Dave's?
Yeah, I dropped off 2 jars and 2 little bags from Diane, so.
Oh, okay. Did you hear from Diane? No, I got one
She get back
email.
anyways.
Down at the corner of the barn, and where Richard Wiegand is standing, and Kathy will tell us what that's doing down there.
That was a double barn door, and we would open that up, and that is where the cows would go into the barn. And around the corner is another door, and we also would use that door, and they would come in that way too.
Okay.
And this would be a big barnyard. You can see where the where the weeds get taller there, not quite that far. There was a fence, and it went all the way around up until the silo here.
Okay, just 1 second. She'll explain a little bit a new entrance to the building.
This door was used for the young stock. That is where they came in and out, and there was a fence, and it probably went right through along here, right along the edge
with
of
the
the
barn. Okay.
And then they would have free rein. They would go in and out all day long.
Okay, and that is really below the granary, is that correct?
Yep, that was below the greenery.
Okay, all right.
That is, and then there was a pen. I don't know, the pen is still in the
Yes,
inside.
it is. There was a bullpen or something?
No, that was the pen for where, like, when they were not little calves, medium-sized
Yeah.
calves, and then they would take them out of there after a while, and they would tie them in the stanchions.
All right.
Yeah, underneath the granary was all for livestock.
Okay.
So,
All right. Could you explain also the sheep and the watering and the lime, things like that?
okay. Right over here to our right, you will see is the sheep barn. And in the top was storage and the bottom the sheep were, and there was a fence, and this was called the sheep hills, if you can see all the way along here. But you know, there are so many trees. In those days there weren't any trees.
Okay.
And in the area to the over there where, I don't know what where you see my brother-in-law driving out,
Yep.
by that by those trees there was a round thing, and it was the lime pit. And we burnt stones or something, and that is what made the lime for in the alley on the barn.
Really? So you got actually lime underneath the terrain here?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
there's all limestones here. This is real rocky here. There's many stones. We used to have to pick stones for a week to 2 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's lots of stones. This is not good farmland at all. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
And again, that sheep barn is right behind you, Kathy?
Yep, that's right behind me, and we would have to carry the grain there, and we would also have to carry the bales of hay there.
Okay.
And the water had to be carried down there from the pump house.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, where we fed them.
Okay.
And in the fall, in the spring, they would shear them.
All right.
And first of all, we did it alone, and my dad was pretty good at that. He would shear them, you know, and then once in a while they would get into their skin, and they would get away on you, and they would run. And then all this wool would drag, you know.
Oh.
And in later years, then a crew came in, and that one zip, and they were all done.
All done. Okay.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned a water hole that they drank
and
at?
they would drink. There was a natural spring that is right next to County Trunk C. But when County Trunk C was built,
Yep.
it did something to the spring, and the spring isn't near what it used to be at all.
Okay.
It was in a little grove of cedar trees.
All right. Kathy, down here below the, what was this, the machine shed?
This was actually our car shed. That's where our cars were in, and the buggy used to be in there, and the cutter.
That was above.
That was above, up in the top. That's where those things were stored.
All right.
And underneath here, as you can see, it was machines were stored here. And you can see the old corn binder yet.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's an old plow yet that was one with horses.
Okay.
Yeah, one-man plow.
One-man plow.
And here is even the ass mower, and it still has the long pole on.
Okay.
And over there is the drag.
A drag, huh?
A drag, and on top of it is a deer head. You see it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
He must have put his deer in there. So,
My goodness.
God, there's enough lumber everywhere. Where are we going?
And everything was stone, huh?
Yeah, everything was stone.
And you say the farm had a lot of stones.
Yep, had very many stones. Oh.
Okay, very good.
And behind us,
She is pointing out a building that no longer exists, but she'll describe it. Go right ahead, please.
it was the building where the tractors were stored, and there was an old, was it a Fortson tractor, and they had steel wheels?
Yep.
Yeah, that we had one of those, and next to it would be the gas tanks where we stored our fuel.
Okay.
And that building my grandfather had built at one time.
Okay. Okay. Was that a stone or a log building, or do you remember?
It was lumber.
Lumber? Okay.
It was lumber.
All right. Trying to tie in where the buildings were located, and we're using the aerial map a little bit, and this is the sheep barn, which is still there, and then Kathy has pointed out an area that this has been the area where the additional building was. Tractor shed here where the Fortson was located, and gas tanks and so forth. Okay, good enough. Thank you. Kathy again, and she's going to point out something. We're going to follow a part of a trail and try and get there.
That you can see there's a trail running down here all the way around, and we use that all the time. And then in the field, not where my brother-in-law is driving, but over you would go toward the north more, toward County Trunk C. Originally there was a log cabin there.
Okay.
And when we used to work the field and we would pick stones and stuff, we would find pieces of china, broken glass and things.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so that was always interesting. And we found many arrowheads on this farm.
Okay.
Right, so the Indians were around here.
Was there a certain location on the farm that most arrows were found,
No,
or was
all
it sort of all over?
All over.
Really?
Yeah, there were Indians here. Because I suppose too, because it's so wooded.
Sure, Sure.
Yeah, so.
And they had stones to work with.
Yeah, you bet they did.
Made a lot of arrows and accents.
Yep, you bet, so.
Very good.
Okay,
Thank you, Kathy.
we'll go here now, my brother.
Two people who've been supplying a lot of information about this beautiful farm. And Kathy brought up something about lime. Go right ahead.
There was a lime pit, and it was out in the sheep hills, and we talked about it. My brother-in-law was driving. The hill isn't there anymore because it was used for gravel after a while.
Okay.
But it was a round hole, and my dad, or hole, it had stones around, and he would burn limestones to make lime for.
Okay.
Well, they used lime years ago. They'd dig out the lime, and then they'd put it in a like a mortar pan, big pan.
Yeah.
And then they'd pour water on top.
Yeah.
And that would start boiling. So
Really?
they would use that for whitewashing barns and after it's boiled. But you had to keep stirring it, otherwise it would burn tight and it'd be one solid chunk.
So you had to keep it in a fluid condition.
Right.
Okay.
Well, it was like powdery, right?
Well, yeah, it was powder when
It
you
was
started,
powder.
but then you put water on it and then it would boil. And
Oh.
then you'd get this liquid, and you'd get the whitewash.
Oh,
And
okay.
then,
It
but-
was tricky, that I can remember.
But you had to keep stirring
Keep
it.
stirring it,
And,
huh?
it, wa- and it took days to do this.
Well, not when you poured the water on once.
And when you
then,
poured
then
the
it's-
water up, I
then you
just.
had to get at it right away.
Before they poured the water on, they tried to crush this stuff up, I presume,
Evidently that it was
to a powder almost,
Yeah.
huh? But
So-
that was used, now the whitewash, could you explain what farmers did with that whitewash years ago?
Well, they would sweep all the barn beams off and everything with, a lot of times they took old cedar branches and
Right.
swept the barn branches, or the barn beams off down in the barn,
Okay.
in the cow barns.
Yep.
And then when everything was clean, then they'd put this whitewash in a barrel and they'd whitewash the barn and it was nice and white again when
Okay.
they got done with it.
Now,
And-
did they have a brush effect to brush it onto the
No.
barn, or did they spray it, or what?
They usually had a pump in a barrel with a sprayer on it.
Okay.
And then they'd spray it on the barn.
Okay. And that was usually in the stable, I presume, right?
In the stable area they did this.
And I know from the past when I was on the farm too, the barn smelled very fresh and nice when they had it
Right.
completed.
They usually always did it in fall before the cattle would come in the barn, stay
Okay.
in the barn for the winter. So.
All right.
And a lot of people whitewashed their basements too to keep them nice and white. So.
Ah, in the house, you mean?
Yep. I still have a whitewash basement,
Oh, you do?
right? But I can't find a whitewasher anymore. That's a thing of the past now.
There used to be a Reister in St. Agents.
Oh.
Right. Herman Reister. still
Herman
McKinney,
Reister?
But he just
Right.
died too.
Right.
Okay, but he
Yeah.
used to do the whitewashing. You'd call him up and he'd come out and do it?
Yeah, he had a big truck where he had a tank on and everything
Okay.
on, and long spray hoses, and he'd
Uh-huh.
whitewash the barns.
Okay, very good. And it almost like sanitized the barn too and brightened it up in the stable.
Right, it took
Yeah.
care of the spiders and everything.
Ah, that's right, that's right. Well, very good. Now
And a
you,
lot of people would use the lime on the alley of the barn. For
Oh, yes.
behind the cows, then that would be all clean too. You clean off, and you
Sure.
clean it off, and then you sprinkle that lime on.
okay, and that was to give traction and clean things up and keep it fresh.
Yeah.
Okay, now you indicated there was a whitewash pump someplace.
There's a whitewash pump in the granary that I just put in there.
Okay, let's take a look at that. Have you got a minute left yet?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Some people here who are really providing good information, and I had a question for the people here about the depth of a well and so forth. Maybe they can indicate some information. Go right ahead, please.
Well, as far as we know, they were all saying this well was awful deep. I believe they said the figure of 200 feet.
200 feet. Holy cow.
Not exact on that, but
Yeah.
I believe that's what they were talking about. And years ago, on this well, there used to be an old pump, a regular hand pump on here.
Okay.
And then there was a pump house next to this, and that had a gasoline engine in there, and that had a belt up to a line shaft, and
Okay.
that come across
All right.
and drove the pump.
All right.
After all, the gasoline engine went haywire, and I guess then they got electricity, I suppose.
Right. I was pretty old when they got electricity already. I mean, I wasn't a small child. I would say 4th, 5th grade.
Oh, really?
By the time we got electricity, yeah.
So that would have been in the 40s by that time,
In the
right?
40s, yeah. By the time the line ran through here.
Okay. And what did they do with that gas engine then? And
Well, they left the gas engine stand, and then they hooked the electric motor on the opposite end and run that through a belt, and,
okay.
and then through the gas engine the way it was hooked up before.
Oh, okay.
And and in this pump house,
Yeah.
there also was such a round black kettle. And when they butcher ducks and things, then they would butcher out here in
Oh.
the pump house.
Okay.
And then next to it was a little, it was called a little milk house.
Right.
But how that worked or where the milk tank was, I don't know. Don't remember that. I just remember my grandpa fixed shoes in there after a while.
Yeah, but that house was too small for a milk tank, actually. So.
Yeah, so
Okay.
what that really was is, I don't know how they did it in those years.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you very much. The granary building, and in the medium level here, there's a area for machines and so forth, and this gentleman has, we were talking about lime and whitewashing, and he can explain a little bit more. What do we got here, please?
Now this is the barrel that they put the whitewash in, the liquid whitewash after it was heated up with the water
Okay.
and stirred.
Uh-huh.
And they would take this pump here, and this was the pump that they used for
Oh, for,
spraying. The hose was attached to here. There was
oh, really?
a long hose attached to it with a
Yeah.
spray nozzle, and
Yeah.
that's how they would whitewash the buildings.
So one guy would be at the barrel with this pump,
and one would have
and
to
one would
stand,
be with the
stand and pump.
pump. Okay. And the other guy would be with the end of the hose and spraying it around.
So, yeah,
And this kept also, it did two things. It pumped and churned up the,
the whitewash at the same
Whitewash.
time.
now you indicated something. You had to keep that whitewash lime water, if you want to call it that, kind of moving or fluidy all the time.
Right, otherwise it would burn and then cake into a hard lump again.
Oh gosh. It would,
If you didn't stir it in a barrel, you had to chip it out with a chisel or something. It would turn hard. So,
so you were under the gun a little bit to keep this thing going.
that's right.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for showing us this piece of equipment. Never seen
Then
one.
I have another piece of equipment here that you'd probably like to take.
Okay.
The cattle dehorner,
Ah,
big shears that they use to cut the horns on the cattle.
okay. Oh boy.
They'd stick them, well, this is closed, but they'd stick them over the cattle. This would open up.
Yeah,
The horn would go in here,
yeah.
and then they'd squeeze the thing and it'd cut the horn off.
Okay, so you had some gears mounted to the handles, and that went up and down on that rack, and that what drove the knife into. Oh, okay, I see. Ooh, I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of that
Well,
one.
usually the cattle bellered pretty well when their horn was cut off. I'll see if I can get this open.
Okay, how old are cattle about? Were they sort of prior to being a heifer or
Well, yeah, they
yearling or
They
something?
usually did it when they were young, like a yearling.
Okay.
The younger they were, the better it was.
Yeah, yeah.
See, this would open up,
Oh
and
my God, Lizzie.
then the horn would go in there, and then
Clock.
so then the cattle would usually beller when that.
I bet, and the blood would fly too a little, I bet.
Right,
Huh?
and we always had a fellow come by our house, and he'd pull the veins out at the
Oh,
the horns, then
Yeah.
they'd quit bleeding sooner.
okay.
So,
But it was must have been quite an activity when
Yeah.
that happened.
and usually you'd like to do it when it's cold outside. You chase them out, and then that blood would thicken.
Oh, it
fast.
would clot out in the cold air.
Right.
Okay, very good. Good old memory, thank you.
Right.
Mr. Charlie Bauer here, who's helping out today, and he's got a unique piece of equipment that he run across. Go right ahead,
Yeah,
please.
we're looking at the manure carriage monorail system that was in the barn here, and we're down here at the switch. And the track is on, you can see, goes this way, and it also curves and goes that way.
Okay, let me get that first, Charlie. You got a one that curved down to the other end here,
Yeah,
and then the other, I'll go back to the beginning,
yeah,
and then the other one curved and it went this route.
right.
Okay.
One is basically on the north side of the barn, and one is on the south and the southeast side of the barn.
Okay,
So-
and this track that was a single track went out to where, Charlie?
Yeah, this track went outside, and there was another metal track outside here, and that went to the manure stacking area outside.
Okay.
Where the manure would be dumped.
Okay,
And this big wheel here
yes.
operates this switch, and right now it's set up so it would catch the manure track this way and follows right on through.
Oh, I see.
So when I turn this wheel here,
Yeah, yeah.
then the track moves
Oh, look at that.
like so,
There it is.
and now the trolley can come through this way and out to the manure pile.
Okay, just one second. I'm taking some close-ups here. And I saw that wheel like it went over center to make sure it stayed in position.
Right, there's like a camber on here.
Ah, oh, there it goes. Okay. I see the linkage there.
The linkage is up here.
Do it
yes.
again. Just keep going.
And then once you get in place,
Yep.
now she's locked.
Now she's locked again.
Right.
Oh
So
my
the track
God.
can't wiggle. If it would wiggle apart here, the wheel would come off and the
Yeah,
manure
bang.
would end
There-
up on the spent here. Yes.
Big trouble. Okay, Charlie, could you just slowly do it one more time, back and
One more
forth?
time.
Back and forth.
We're gonna go back to the other track.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
now she's locked.
Now she's locked. Take her back to you one more time.
It's almost like a switching on a railroad
Yeah,
track.
very, very good. Very good. And thank you for seeing that part of it. Very good. Thank you. Okay, we got Mr. Bauer working on taking some stanchions apart here, a wooden stanchions.
Actually, I'm trying to get this metal bracket off
Uh-oh.
that's around this water pipe here,
Oh.
because I believe the water part is going to come separate from the.
Ah. Not that easy.
No, is it?
After Charlie's leave, because these nuts that we thought were rusted on here for the last 100 years, that
Yes.
we would never get off and have to saw. I came over here with the wrench and then with my fingers, and I'm taking the nuts off. And how that can ever
That can't
occur,
happen. That can't happen.
I am amazed. So here I am taking the nut off. Here it is. My
There it
bare
is.
hands. So,
And that
I don't
drink.
know that they'll all be that easy, but the fact that any of them are, to me, is something.
Yeah. Is the drinking cup, is that a casted cup, by the way?
It seems like it's a cast iron, yeah.
Okay.
I've never seen any quite like them before.
No, I never did either. Never did. Okay, we got Chris back here, and he's going to indicate something here, nice
Well,
and
this is
loud.
what our procedure is going to be now. We're going to take off all these waters and take the plumbing away. And then this whole row, we're thinking we can just cut in half and put in 2 pieces onto the wagon.
Okay, all right.
Easier than what we thought.
Okay, very
Other
good.
than, we wish you would have brought the lights along, because we never thought we were going to work past dark in here. But I
It's
can
going to be a little rough, I
I'm
think.
going to add that to my standard toolbox now for barn work, is always bring along the spotlights.
There we go. Very good, thank you. Well, in the Lechler Barn, and Kathy has some information that's scribed someplace. Go right ahead.
You can see that Harry Strassman, and I would maybe think it would be Helmut Lechler, carved their initials in this part of the barn.
Yeah.
And in 1960, something was supposed to happen with a star. You
Okay.
can see that it's here and here and here, and way down here is the other part. But I've watched over the years, and I don't know, we'll have to look in the year 1960 if anything ever happened with a star. It was something that was predicted.
Okay.
Okay?
Oh, that's a good one. Kathy here in the Lechler Barn and in the stable area, and Kathy has some information. Go right ahead.
Right in this area, we had our calves tied, and this is where the little manger was, and you would put a handful of hay for them, and then over here is where you put the chain through, and I have the chain over here to show you the, oh, here's one.
Okay,
Just
just
a
one
minute,
second.
please.
Kathy again, and she is at the calf area, and she's indicating how were tied up, I believe. Go right ahead.
This would be one of the chains that was used to tie up the calves, and if you look at the end, it was a little crossbar.
Okay.
And you would stick the little crossbar into the hole like this, and you would turn it. And that is what kept the calves secure for the evening or
Okay,
period. That's
okay.
what tied the calves.
Okay, and you could get the calf loose real easy by just shoving that back in and turning
Right,
it.
and you could lead the calf too.
Oh, that's
And
right.
another thing that it was always hard to wean a calf from the cow.
Yeah.
And when they had a drink out of the pail, they would buck their head into the pail sometimes, and
Yeah.
the pail would drop. But in later years, a pail wasn't invented that had a nipple on it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then they would just suck off that nipple, so that made it much easier to feed the calves.
Oh, okay. Because I
Okay.
know when they were switched from a cow, they were used to bunting, I guess,
Right. It was
the udder to get some more milk.
milk, right, and that's why they put their head in the pail and bucked like that, right?
Very good, thank you.
That's referred to as kneading the breast.
Kneading that was a quote from Charlie Bauer,
Oh, right.
kneading the breast. Here, and she must have did this many times on the farm when she helped clean out the barn, so she's going to show me and demonstrate something. Go right ahead.
The manure bucket would be on here, and you would want to make it go back to where the young stock was. Then you would have to turn the wheel here, and that made the track, the outside track turn, and then you would line it up.
Okay,
And this is the tool that you would use to do that.
okay. That's for the short little gals like you, huh?
Right, you know, then you turn the wheel and then, you know, that's how you made your manure bucket go each way.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome.
Side is that barn where the cattle were and the horses. I mean, originally it was more horses than cattle. It was the oxen and the workhorses, not dairy. But we may decide to tell the 1890 story of what happened to dairying, and that this would have probably been the first dairying around in 1880 to 1885 was when dairying started. So we may have a portion of that barn that shows it how it was then, and another portion that shows it at 1900,
Okay.
when they probably
Yeah.
added that rail, or
Sure.
1910.
Yeah.
So it doesn't all have to be the same vintage. We may elect to sell it,
Yeah,
to tell
do
a
it-
different story.
Yeah, do it in different
Sure,
pieces and so.
sure, I think that would be great.
You know, I would think back in the old days, these stanchions were sort of high tech at that time, right?
Had weights on so it would stay closed, but it was a swinging door, so it
Okay.
went back and forth.
All right.
Yeah, but the weights are off right now.
So the reason that you wanted that door shut so no cattle would get into
Right,
that
if
area.
They got, say that they got out during the night,
Yeah.
then at least, you know, you could close it like this and then they couldn't get in,
Okay.
okay? I don't think this part was here years ago, this.
All right.
Yeah, it was just with the weights.
Okay.
To throw the hay down, and
Okay.
this would always be a huge pile of hay, and I had to help throw the hay down too.
Okay.
And then we would take it, and we would have a hay fork, and then we would put it in the manger for the cattle,
All right.
all the way along here.
All right.
Okay, see if I can find that. I don't know, is that gone? There was that silage cart last time I was down here. Did you take that out already, Chris?
Silage cart, silage cart.
A thing that had real,
Richard did something with, yeah, we took the double-ended silage cart. That's back at the house barn already.
so that's at the house barn, okay.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Richard kinda got into that one, so.
I wonder what these pipes were for, that there's so many of them.
In the Lechler barn in the stall area, and Kathy is going to indicate some more information. Go right ahead.
We had 3 horses. This one was Pete.
Okay.
This one was Mux.
Muck?
and Mux.
Okay.
And this one was Flora.
What was the last name, please?
Flora.
Flora.
Flora, right. And those 2 were white, and Flora was black.
Okay.
And these 2 were real tame, the 2 end ones, and this one was real wild.
Oh.
And we had to feed them too. This is the manger for them where we would put their oats in.
Okay.
And also their hay.
All right.
And Mux, he would get wild once in a while, and he would jump right over the top, have his front legs right over the top of the manger
Oh
here.
my goodness.
And this is a box, and this box was used, it was a chicken crate. When you
Okay.
took chickens to town or moved them by your neighbor or something, then you would put them in this chicken box.
Okay.
And if you will look on the Lutzy house barn, the picture of August, he is standing on a chicken crate like this that is real much like this, and
Okay.
like this.
All right. Now, this was a brick? It was a brick and stone,
Brick and stone it was made out of
Okay.
for the horses, right?
and they,
And
okay,
if you'll notice behind, there is no gutter behind there.
all right.
And we also had a horse over there, Pat, and he was brown, and that was in that section.
Okay,
There was, you know, a manger, and there was, along there were boards built too, you know, otherwise you'd have to be too careful.
okay. Did you drive the horses for any equipment at all?
Yes, I used to drive the horses with reins, 2 reins you had.
Okay, and for what equipment did you actually work with? Wagons or?
You worked with wagons and you had them on the corn planter, and I used to have to sit on the corn planter that I had to watch the corn dropped in. No, that was with the tractor. But then I sat on the corn planter. But let's see, mostly for haying, I would think.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right.
and well, took the manure out. I didn't take the manure out, but you took the manure out with the horses too.
Sure,
You had a manure spreader in those days.
Okay,
Wasn't all push a button like today.
not today. Yeah, very good. Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome. You would pour your grind feed in, and we called it trot. And this box was against the wall, and then the grind feed would go into this box, and then we would take pails,
All right.
pails, and then we would feed all the cattle.
Okay, all right. Very good. Thank
And
you.
the silage came out of here,
All right.
way down in there, or did you video that
We
already?
we videoed that area.
Okay, then we don't need to go in that area
Okay,
either anymore.
very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sixel, and she's going to show me some other area of the stable area. Go right ahead.
Right in this area, there was a gate over here, and this is where we would put a cow when she was having a calf. It would be the birthing pen, and also when you had a sick cow, you would put her in there.
All right.
And these are the stairways that would go upstairs, and that's how you got to the level, and you would throw down your straw and your hay.
All right. And you did all that too, huh?
Yep, helped with that too.
Okay, so you helped with that. You milked, fed the calves.
Fed the calves, you know, manured the barns, threw out the silage, all various duties that you had over the years.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. You're a busy woman.
Yeah, that's when we were kids. Every kid worked like that.
True, true.
Everybody had chores to do, you know, and we had to chase the cows and get the cows every night with our faithful dog. My dog's name was Curly.
Curly.
Curly, because he was a Cocker Spaniel and he had all black curls.
Okay.
And he was with us for many years, and our next dog was Poochie.
All right. Okay, very good. Could you give those horses names one more time too?
This was Pete,
Okay.
Mox
Mox was the wild one.
was a wild one, and Flora.
Oh, and Flora. Okay.
And Flora. And we used to play on her. We would crawl over that brace that you can see there, the board, and we would sit on her while our parents would be doing the milking. Yeah, she was a real tame horse.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go over here too.
With Kathy, and she's have some remembrances of the old days, and she'll indicate that. Go right ahead.
Right here, a cow stood, and it was a brown and a white cow, so maybe it was a Guernsey or a Jersey.
Okay.
And we used to always crawl on this board, and then we would crawl on Patsy's back, and we would play with her. She was real tame, and we would sit on her, and while our parents would be milking, that is what would occupy our time.
But you had to be out here for a little work every so often,
Oh
right?
yeah, we had because my dad worked nights, and we had to do chores, you know,
Okay.
and then my mother milked, and we had to help my mother milk them, my sister and myself.
Okay. Now you carried the milk also.
Yeah, we had to carry, but it wasn't like big buckets, you know, with the milker. First of all, it was little little pails, and then in later years, well, then we had the milk machine buckets that we had to carry.
Okay.
And then you would have a hook that was hooked onto the manure track,
Okay.
and then you would put the top of the milker there, and you would hook that on, and then you carried the milk out,
Oh.
and then you would attach the cover to the pail again, and
Okay.
then you would hook it onto the next cow.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah,
So that
yeah.
was that like a deal a valve type thing?
No,
or do
it
you
was the other milker. It was
surge.
maybe a certain. It wasn't. And in later years, we had one where the cows had a strap.
Oh yeah. Okay. That was a surge.
That
Okay.
was a surge. We had that, but these were regular
Floors.
pails, but they didn't have an extra set of pails. So often
Ah.
you have to hang that cover onto that track.
I see. I
Yeah.
see. Okay.
So-
Very good. Very good.
And then in the milk house, when you put the milk in there, you had a certain thing, and you would stir that milk every time you poured warm milk into the cold milk. Then you would stir it in the can so that it wouldn't sour.
Yes.
And
yes.
our
yes.
tank was about that high.
Okay.
It was a cement tank, and you had to lift the cans
Way up.
over the top.
Oh my goodness.
And the first years, you would use just a rag or like a dish towel, and that is what you put in your strainer with clothespins.
Oh.
But in the later years, then milk discs came out.
Yes,
And then
yeah.
you would put them in your strainer, and you would put, there was another part you punched down, and that caught all the dirt and the straw.
Oh, okay. Very.
And sometimes, you know, the inspector came,
Yes.
and they would take your milk and they would test it. And if a little round thing came back, and it would show how much dirt was in your milk.
Yeah.
And of course, that was the time then maybe you had to whitewash your barn.
Sure.
Or something was wrong with your milking equipment. But inspectors were around in those days just like they are now.
Okay. They were watching everything too.
Yep, they were watching everything too, so that for sure it was all clean. And when there would be a snowstorm and we couldn't go to school, we would always take cream off of the can, and we would make ice cream.
Okay.
We didn't have a refrigerator in those days, so we would get ice off of the roof. That's what with the icicles, big long icicles. You had more icicles in those days.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we used that, you know, and you had a big wash tub, and the ice cream maker was a round stave thing, and you would make like a custard you would cook with eggs and cream, and then after a while you would add more cream, and then you would you also had to have salt and snow along into that ice,
Okay.
and then we all took turns cranking. And then when you couldn't crank anymore, then your ice cream
Ice cream
was
was
done.
ready.
Yep.
Very good.
And then we would take sweet bitter chocolate,
Ah.
And we would just scrape it with a knife, and
Sure.
we always ate that
Little-
over our ice cream.
Oh,
And-
that was
and
delicious, huh?
my dad always helped us make that.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah,
Good,
so-
good memory, good memory.
Yeah.
Thank you. We found something unusual in the stable. Go right ahead, please.
Yeah, the, Richard Wiegand, the stanchion that we have on the corner here is set back, you know, from, you know, the rest of them are all located underneath this 2x4.
Yeah.
But this one was set back. And what it would do is, that if you had a shorter cow, you'd get her a little closer to the gutter, so she'd hit the gutter when she'd manure and
Okay,
urinate.
all right.
And in fact, Kathy said they had a Jersey cow in the corner here, a Jersey little brown cow.
Right.
Smaller than the Holstein.
Sure.
So we got one stanchion here for a little cow,
Okay.
and then here we got two more.
Ah,
These are also set back. So
okay.
there's a little individual variation here
Yeah.
for size of cow.
And she said also that every cow went back to its same stanchion all the time.
Yeah, they memorize their place, and that's what they like. They
Okay.
don't want to go to anybody else's place.
Very good. Thank you, Richard. By the way, is that just a 2x4 or is that some other size?
Well, this is a 2x5 or something. It's a little bigger than the 2x4.
Okay, all right.
You fold it on here, but
Sure.
it allows the cow to stand back a little bit. to take
Very
the
good.
gutter.
Very good. Thank you.
Go ahead and label them as you are. Then go to the clipboard and make it